Welcome to the /podcast. We are continuing our great conversation with John Willis from last week. As promised, this is part 2 with the consigliere of DevOps. Hope you enjoy. I think it's going to come down to, in the enterprise at least, when it comes to agents, is like, and I talked about this in my article about, we've got to basically, the outcomes are scripted. They're codified. They're known. Like the outlets of this agentic graph of things that you can do, the leaves, if you will, in that tree, those are scripted. We know what those are. Furthermore, you need delegated authority. Like those things have to have the right permissions on them. If you're doing it on behalf of me, I don't have the permission to delete the prod database. So even if you are doing something for me and that tool's out there, it ain't gonna let you do it because you're showing up with my jot, right? So I think that's something that we're missing, is that delegated authority.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of time on this too. I think there's two things. One is there's certain people who are trying to solve this through sort of deterministic invocation of agents, right? Like let's file everything up. But again, once inference is part of the agent's decision processing, you're going to find these things that are edge cases that humans can't see that the power of the inference can. The other one that I think is really interesting is, how do you build containment? In other words, are there sort of mechanisms that you can say, even if the inference makes a decision to do something weird, like I think maybe WASM is a little too nascent to be generally, but things like that, or there are certain, operating system sort of kernel level controls where maybe it can only run this task, or, even something like eBPF. Like, again, I'm not saying this is solved by any means, but I do think we need to rethink, if we're going to run autonomous agents in regulatory control, we not just think about not just atomic nature of the agent, but atomic nature of the containment vehicle itself. So those are where I think we can actually get to a place where we might be able to run some semblance of autonomous agents in regulatory. And by the way, if you haven't gone deep on any of this, do not pass go.
Yeah. You definitely. I like that phrase, containment. That's kind of what I was talking about. Is like that the outcomes are scripted.
You talk about a control plane. That's why that whole article resonated really well with me, because you were hitting on all the things that I've been thinking about, which is a control plane, and then so if you think about how does a control plane manage agents, and like even as simple as I do this in my workshop, like why not think about like agents in terms of read, write, and execute? Just simple exercise, like and read is not, read is just as dangerous, right? But it's less dangerous than a write, which creates permanent, sort of mutation, which is way different of a multi-system execution, right? And so, like, okay, I'm going to do agents or not do agents? I'm going to try to be a lot more clear about what are the policies, what are the definitions of how we run agents, and we can have clear sets of goals and restrictions and control points, or a control plane for if it's read only, write, or write and execute.
Yeah, the one thing I'm experimenting with right now, it's kind of an interesting concept to me, is as we're building agentic systems, if the containment is such that the agents or the agent or agents feel too constrained, give them a mechanism of feedback to say, if I could only do this, I could solve this problem quicker. And then so you can catalog that and then review that, and then those become PR. So it's a scripted way to evolve the problem space.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I see also is a parallel to that is escalation policies. In other words, like there's sort of this human in the middle, human in the loop, human on the loop, right? And human in the loop, right? Like they're not going to be autonomous if we have to stop every time and have a human go. But maybe there's points of escalation, like it's about to it's confidential data that's going to be sent to a limited number of people, but for some reason it has a list of 10,000 people. Maybe that's a point of where we send it out to Slack for somebody to double check, or things like that, right? Like sort of some form of, there's certain things where when the numbers don't and I do this in my lab, I create these conflicting conditions, and like you might want to, like, if the number is over 365 days, which is over a year, maybe we should just send that to Slack for a double check, things like that,
So there's some, so you're saying almost like thresholding type of a thing. There are some scripted and predefined conditions under which you would solicit
and
human
this is
feedback.
sort of the known unknown stuff, right? Like, in other words, when I'm thinking about, like, this is something that's going to send, it's an agent that's going to send confidential information to only the C-level people. Maybe, I want to have it flexible enough so I don't know, like, there could be some, sort of chief of staffs or whatever, which don't have the C title. But if I see it going to more than 30, because even if it went to, like, if 5 of those on a list were, like, the people under these chief of staffs who probably shouldn't have got it, but if it's like 1,000, whoa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so,
Yeah.
so I think that would be a known unknown. In other words, I don't know. I thought it was going to deterministically do this. Some reason, through some calculation, it decided to send it to 1,000 people. That's enough for me to make sure I'm double checking, right?
And would you also maybe, just thinking through this, like, I see the scripted part and the thresholding and put a little bit of intelligence in there, almost like a weighting, as you said. Like if it's C-level people, you need more scrutiny here, those sort of things. So that's scripted, that's deterministic in nature. But then would you do almost take like the TSA approach? Like, okay, we're sending enough of these things through the little thing. Oh, wait a minute, we're pulling you aside randomly. Would you do human intervention on a random
I
basis?
think that's not a bad idea. I think, certainly again, the easy part is to talk about it. The hard part is figure out what it is that leaves the autonomy but still gives you a level of control. But again, more important to me, so like a kill switch.
Yeah.
Like, the ability to have a kill switch. I mean, the Night Capital was interesting because I talked to other high frequency trading companies, where they lost, $450 million in like 40 minutes. They said, yeah, that can happen, but we would kill it in 5 minutes. We would literally see an out of control trade, and we'd have a kill switch for that, right? In other words, so that kind of thinking. But again, my meta point is you're going to have to show, and you still may lose, you still may get fined, you still may go out of business, but you're going to have to show that you thought about these things. You can't just show up and say it was AI.
Right. Yeah. Claude made me do it, right?
Yeah, Claude made me do it. That's a good shirt.
Well, that's interesting. So that idea of that kill switch is almost like kind of that, what do they call it in, I think they talked about it in Accelerate, the Andon Cord.
Yeah,
right?
no,
When the manufacturing line, something's going wrong.
But again, that's a beautiful tied together, because that was the beauty of the and the beauty of the Andon Cord was anybody could pull it, right?
Right.
And there was no blame for pulling it, right? So that was the lean sort of blamelessness. But yeah, that was the point. It was, they were automating cars to the point where they wanted that flow. Toyota at some point, and even today, some of the best automation produce in a plant somewhere in 2,000 or 3,000 cars a day. They don't want that to stop. And in fact, some of the arguments are the more Andon cards you pull, they actually wind up going faster because you learn quicker, right? But yeah, the Andon card is a great sort of like for maybe thinking about autonomous agents, is that we need the ability to learn much. And you had it earlier, I think you talked about, is having it sort of make decisions about telling it where it might have been able to get a recommendation for a better way to do it. That is actually a form of an AI-based Andon cord.
Yeah, I just started doing that just literally yesterday. Started incorporating that feedback loop from the LLM. Like, hey, how could I raise any friction you have while using these tools that we've prepared, your environment, your tool space?
Yeah, no, I think the other thing that you're touching on, which is another sort of open opportunity, which is there's really good evaluation software. And evaluation software is literally, I have some questions. I'm going to do an inference. But what I've done previously is I've built a corpus of what they call ground truth of what the answers should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I feed my question or inference into the model, I get an output before I turn it over to a user or in a pipeline change, as we discussed earlier. I literally run it against another LM. They call this LM as a judge.
Yep.
LM has the ground truth, and then it calibrates what probability that is, a bias, correctness, hallucination, and all that stuff. That stuff works good for non-agentics. The problem I see right now is I don't see any evaluation software today, and I'd love somebody to reach out to me if I'm missing something, is that when a task is making a decision to call, maybe it's going to call 100 implementations of a task, and 5 out of the 100 it calls task B, 95 it calls task A. How do I sort of create some type of what you're trying to do is protection mechanism in there, and using some form of inference as a judge or a balance or a counterattack, and very specifically trying to at least document why it made a certain decision. There was a great presentation, I think it was by Facebook or Adobe, about where they talked. It was Meta. Yeah, it was Meta. They talked at the chocolate something, where they showed how an inference would every once in a while just come up with a risk incident class, a risk class of like chocolate bananas or something. I don't know, it was something weird, and it was like it would just like freak out.
Right.
And you know, and they talked all about how this, like, it could be so consistent at a high level of time, but every once in a while it just, you know, out of nowhere it just does something. Well, that's going to happen in decision making for agents, where we won't be able to explain why it made that decision, but we're going to have to show a provenance of, like, did we track when it made the decision? Can we got to be smart enough to be able to figure out the sort of, why is it wrong? I mean, again, the evaluation software against hallucinations and bias is not that it's going to stop it from giving the wrong answer. It's going to stop us from possibly giving that wrong answer to somebody who might have consequences.
Yeah, and the risk would be incorporating that idea in a runtime system, in, you know, at inference time in production. Because if you try to do that constantly, maybe you would do it with sampling or something like that. But like, you're going to slow everything down. So you'd almost
I think that's a penalty that, you know, I think, you know, I worked with a large client last year, and they had a budget. You know, they weren't calling it token economics at the time, but it was basically token economics. They had a budget, and almost 3 or 4 months. So in fact, this is what Uber just announced the other day. But I don't know the Uber story for sure, but I knew this company I worked with, they didn't realize that the evaluation inference cost was higher than the actual inference cost for the services.
Yeah.
But they were a highly regulated industry where they had to have that inference. So I think that we're going to have to find that, like, that there's going to be a high cost of using inference to judge our inferences. And it's going to be more than twice as much as what we would have cost if we didn't do it. And then we're going to get into the risk ROI, and for these ones I can take a chance, these ones I can't, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think they just, that was like last week or something, there was an article about Meta. Not Meta. Uber had already used their whole year 2026 token budget like
Ouch.
In March.
It's almost like you'd have to train like a local neural network to be almost like a runtime cost function, right? Like, well, you would do during training. I mean,
well, that's where this is like running local, like that's going to be part. People talk about like using caveman language and prompts to say, like, I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, like we're in the wild West right now, in a wild, we're in the movie Westworld, right? Like we're in this, like, it's more than Wild West. There's a lot of undetermined robots running around us in a Wild West. That's a good article right there. But
all right, let's do real quickly, quick rapid fire lightning round. We'll do a few questions here. Okay. This is how we get to know our guests. So our last segment is the lightning round. This is where the points matter, all of that sort of stuff. There are right answers, there are wrong answers. We grade this, and we'll send you your score later. But this is the meat of the show. Oh, yeah, this is the meat of the show. Number one, do you like the smell of gasoline?
No.
What's your favorite car?
Still think a Corvette, yeah.
It's a good, solid answer. Would you rather climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
I've jumped from a plane, and I have not climbed a mountain. I would like, since I've jumped from a plane, I don't think it'll ever happen, but I would like to climb a mountain.
Now, did you do this on your own, of your own volition, or were you like in the service where they made you jump out?
Yeah, this again, it's hard to have a podcast for me because my friend Ann Clay Schaefer, 15 years ago, I was way overweight. I made a blog article that said that I was going to lose weight because I was going to jump out of a plane, and you have to lose weight to do it. Over the years, he bugged me. Beginning of last year, I think it was, I finally lost the kind of weight that allowed me to do it. I told him, he said, let's jump. And we went. And so it was this 15-year friendship bond and so I had no choice. Yeah, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
That is cool. Let's see. Black beans or refried beans in your burrito?
Well, that's a close one. I'm going to have to say black beans.
Okay. Are you a Super Mario Brothers kind of person, or are you going Zelda?
I missed that whole thing, man.
No, I didn't do that.
Did it. I was like Pong, right? I'm really old, man. Yeah.
All right. Do you own a bicycle?
I do. I have an e-bike, and I actually do. That's part of my sort of getting back in better in shape. Nice. I live in a university town, and I sort of ride around the campus in the morning, and it's pretty cool.
Name one of the 7 dwarves.
Sleepy, of course.
Good. Favorite childhood television program?
Oh man, as I got older, Twilight Zone, but that's not a good answer. It's for and Roadrunner would be the sort of cliche answer. Come on, and try to remember a little better. I'm gonna get stuck with Roadrunner. There's a better. Who's the? I know what it was. It was that cat. Oh, that cat with the. Anyway, there's a cat that always got in trouble, went to jail all the time. And yeah, anyway, I forget the name of it, but
I saw something the other day about Hong Kong Phooey. Remember Hong Kong Phooey? No. There was only 12 episodes of that show
really?
ever. I didn't know that. I thought it was around my recollection is that it was around forever or whatever. But no, there was only 12 episodes or something. I don't remember what the number was, but it wasn't.
Felix the cat or something.
Felix the cat. All right.
It was he was a clever cat that always got in trouble and whatever.
What's your favorite holiday?
I mean, it's got to be Christmas.
Okay. If you could travel back in time, this will be our final one. This is the bonus question. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Probably I'd want to be around Norbert Wiener. There's always a long answer for me, but Norbert Wiener, Walter Pitts, McCullough, and Jerry Levitin created what they called experimental epistemology. It was a department at MIT where they were exploring the beginnings of cybernetics. Now, they would have kicked me out of the room because I wouldn't have been smart enough to be in the room. But if I could have been in the room, put it this way: if I can go back in time, then I could force myself to be in the room.
Right? Yeah, we can be like, "Hey, look, I'm from the future.
Let me let me hang out."
Let me tell you about 2026. It's nuts.
I think epistemology. I the more and more I think about the way we think about thinking and how it merges with technology is really the most fascinating questions to me right now.
All right. And as we wrap up, anything coming up that you got that you would like to promote? And are you said you're speaking next week? Or any books?
I speak a lot. I mean, people want to. If what I said makes sense, follow me on LinkedIn. It's John Willis Atlantic because John Willis was already taken. My author portal is pretty Amazon author portal. John Willis. My last book, I think, is if you want to understand the history of a storytelling version, but understand the technology, understand I do a good job. I explain that I have 2 target readers in my last 2 books. One is my mother-in-law, who's a high IQ reader but no technology, and then I pick a subject matter expert. And my goal is to make sure they both enjoy the book. In the last 2 books, if the 2 target readers that I pick are not lying to me, and I don't think they are, they did.
Okay.
So it's a really good expose of 100 years of networks, and then my other book is about Deming. So if either of those are interesting to you, they're pretty easy to find on Amazon.
I'm absolutely. I think I texted you this morning or sent you a LinkedIn message that I bought your Deming book, but I'm absolutely going to buy the History of AI one because that's that's a really fascinating story.
Yeah, they're both really good. And they like my two sons. I don't know which one I like more. I love them both. So because they when you start thinking about how they overlap, they do. There's so much overlap there. So
very cool. All right. Well, thank you. I mean, I cannot thank you enough. This has been
was great. I mean, I had a blast,
awesome.
James.
Yeah,
I really did. I was enjoying. I'm glad to meet you. I want to have further conversations with you. You clearly are the kind of person I like to talk about thinking and think about talking. So
yeah. We'll definitely have to do this again. We'll do another episode or even get together outside of the podcast. But this has been great. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being here. And if you'd like to get in touch, drop us a line at /@caliberty.com. See you next time. The / podcast is created by Caliberty. The / team is director and producer Ryan Wilson, editing by Steve Baradelli, marketing support by Taylor Blessing, and I'm your host, James Carman. Thanks for listening.